TFA Fam, what is going on? Hope you are all doing well. Welcome into the wild card tight end rankings for your fantasy playoffs if you're doing them. Before we jump into it, if you want to do the TFA playoff challenge that we are doing, hit us up on the email. That is the easiest way just to make things easy on all of us. It is the fantasyauthority1@gmail.com. If you want to be difficult and reach out to us on social, you can do it that way too. But either way, we're going to need your email. So just make it easier. Help us, help you, help us. Whoever wins the playoff challenge that we are setting up on NFL.com is going to get an autographed Miles Sanders jersey. As of this recording, I think we have like 10 people in it. So if you want good chances at an autographed jersey, make sure you jump in. Again, hit us up, the fantasyauthority1@gmail.com. Kev, we ran a little long on the quarterback show that that we just recorded, as is tradition. But this really should be super simple whenever we get to tight end. Normally, there's not a lot of talk about, but especially whenever you're limiting the teams that you're looking at the way that we are this weekend, obviously, it should make things super simple. So your rankings, you have Mark Andrews, Logan Thomas, Gronk, Austin Hooper, Jonnu Smith, Eric Ebron, Jared Cook, Tyler Higbee, Cole Kmet, Dawson Knox, Jimmy Graham, and Gerald Everett for your top 12. Mine are Mark Andrews, Jared Cook, Austin Hooper, Gronk at 4, Logan Thomas at 5. Both have Ebron at 6, Cole Kmet, Jonnu Smith, Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett, Jimmy Graham, and then I kind of hedged here and just put Indy tight end. I feel like one of those guys could have a good game, but it's really anyone's guess which one that is. That they've been running out 3 tight ends all year long, so I don't have a great feel on it. I don't think you need to dig down this deep, no matter what kind of playoff challenge that you're in, no matter what kind of how yours is set up. So why don't we just hit on these quick? What tight ends do you want to talk about that you think are interesting for wild card weekend?
You have to start with Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews, while he hasn't been, the guy that I think a lot of people were hoping to be this year, some of that's due to, Lamar Jackson's struggles, throughout the earlier parts of the season. But overall, he's somebody that he's not going to see a heavy target share, or at least, amount of targets on a given week due to the fact of how few attempts that Lamar Jackson does have. But he's certainly the number one target for Lamar Jackson. If you look, since Lamar Jackson has taken off, you've really started to see Mark Andrews started to take off a little bit. Going back to week 10, he's had double-digit fantasy points in every single week other than week 17 heading into that. So, he was a number one tight end, or a tight end one over that span as well. So Mark Andrews, I think far and away, I think he just has the most upside in this matchup against Tennessee. Tennessee's, like I said, their pass defense has been terrible. It's obviously an easy matchup to exploit. So I'm not going to sit here and talk all day about Mark Andrews. He's got to be the guy who's going to be the highest rostered player of anybody if you're in those leagues that, where everybody can pick the same team. So again, if you want to get a little different, I think this is a spot you possibly could go to. Maybe if you want to go, because I think Logan Thomas also makes a lot of sense. It's funny, Logan Thomas, we talked about all year, I feel like, on the waiver show, and all year we just kind of waited for him to kind of pop, and he finally did. And he's been on quite a heater over the last, really since week 12, where, again, he's been a tight end one every single week but one, and that was week 14 against San Francisco, where he was tight end 14 that week. He is playing 100% of the snaps every single week. He's out here running a ton of routes as well over that time span. And then he has 2 games with 15 and 12 targets over that span as well. It's going to be hard to find somebody that has that kind of upside. Between him and Terry McLaurin, they're kind of the target hogs in this offense. He is third among all tight ends in targets. He is number 1 in routes run. Route participation, he's number 1. His almost 20% target share is 7th in the league, and he's averaged just about 11 fantasy points per game. So obviously it's a little bit scary with not knowing how Alex Smith, or if they're going to alternate between the two of them. But in terms of the tight end position, we know how gross this position could be. So Logan Thomas does make a lot of sense. I put Gronk on 3. I probably could add Hooper a little bit higher than him, but I just kind of went back and forth. I decided to go with Rob Gronkowski. he's somebody that I don't really know about, but he's kind of boom or bust at this point. He's either going to get you 4 fantasy points or he could get you 20. It just kind of depends. He's not going to go out here and play 80, 90% of the snaps. I would not bet on that. I think it's much fair to say he probably lands somewhere in the 70 to 75% of the snaps. Depending on the biggest question mark for this is really going to be what happens with Mike Evans. Mike Evans today left last week with an injury. I think that could really open things up for Rob Gronkowski if Mike Evans was forced to miss this game. Though I will say Mike Evans was out there for the walkthrough today. We'll have to monitor Thursday and Friday practice reports, or really Wednesday and Thursday practice reports because of when they play. So Rob Gronkowski, I do think is an interesting play. Playoff Gronk, I think, is something you can look at. Austin Hooper going against the Steelers. Since they've lost Odell Beckham, he's really kind of been the number 2 guy in terms of targets in this offense. Really look for him inside the red zone. I am nervous because I don't love Baker Mayfield, but I do think Austin Hooper, in terms of the tight end, makes some sense. Jonnu Smith, I put on here because I think this is going to be a shootout game. It is tough to trust Jonnu, but we know what his upside is here in this offense. So if they are forced to throw the ball, I think then you could kind of look for Jonnu. I think he's kind of a dark horse for an upside play. Again, something if you want to get a little bit different and not play Mark Andrews, or a Logan Thomas, I think Jonnu does make a little bit of sense of kind of that ceiling play that you're looking for, kind of that tournament mindset. I think ultimately at the end of the day, when you're playing on one of these, you just have to look at it a little bit differently than other people do. You have to get a little contrarian because if you don't, you're probably not going to win. And depending on how many people are in the field, in our playoff challenge, if we have 40 or 50 people in this playoff challenge or more, hopefully, then I would definitely look to get a little bit different than everybody else. So that's where I'm coming. I know you have Jared Cook a little bit higher than me. So why don't you talk about him and what your thoughts are on him this week and kind of your overall on your rankings?
Yeah, so with Jared Cook, we mentioned this in the quarterback show. The Bears are looking like they will be without Roquan Smith and Jalen Johnson. Obviously, Johnson's not going to do much against the tight end, but Roquan Smith has definitely been their best coverage linebacker. Danny Trevathan has been kind of hasn't been that great in coverage. The Bears are giving up the second most fantasy points per game to the position, so that's why I like Jared Cook, and especially if you're in a kind of system for your playoffs where you can only use a player once. I mean, tight end really isn't going to matter for us anyway, but you obviously want to hold on to guys like Andrews and Kelsey if you can, you know what I mean? So Jared Cook, I think, is someone who's interesting. We've seen him kind of pop off here and there. I think this could be a game where he does the same. And then somebody else that I'm also interested in, you kind of touched on Austin Hooper. If you look at the Steelers' numbers on the year, it definitely looks a lot better. But we also have to take into consideration that they've just been absolutely decimated injuries, especially at the linebacker position. Going to be without Joe Hayden again. Not that makes that big of a difference for the tight end position, but Austin Hooper is somebody who's interesting. And then also with Eric Ebron, he's someone else who, if you can only use a player once. I don't think a lot of people are going to be looking at Ebron's way, but he does have over 50 catches, over 500 yards, and 5 touchdowns on the season. And the Browns are giving up, they're tied actually for third most fantasy points per game to the tight end position. And after that, same thing like we talked about with quarterback. I really don't think you have to look further on down the list. I would just stick with his top 5, top 6. If you want to get super contrarian, like I said, Indy is interesting to me, but you're really just guessing on who you think, whatever Indy tight end you think is going to pop off. I think we see that game be controlled, or Indy attempt to control that game on the ground, maybe use some play action. I think it's where you see the tight ends get involved. But other than that, I really don't think that there's a lot of these guys that are honestly worthwhile talking about. I think you can kind of just stay in that top 5 range, and you can get different just with, picking somebody like an Ebron or like a Jonnu, who you were mentioning has kind of been boom bust and has been a disappointment on the year. So I don't really have anything else to add to the tight end position. It looks like you don't either. You're giving me the shaking of the head.
No, the tight end position has been a fucking dumpster fire all year. So trying to get different now is not the time I would do so. I think there's a clear path to probably the top 2 or 3 guys. And then after that, I think, and really for me, it's probably the top 2 or probably the 2 you're really going to want to go with. And if you really want to get a little contrarian, I think you could mix in one of those other dudes. So yeah, but I do hope, hey, motherfuckers, listen to me. Make sure you reach out to us at the fantasyauthority1@gmail.com and get into the fantasy challenge. It's a free shout at a jersey, and it's free. What else are you doing? Right? I mean, I hope you play DFS. So if you do that, go check out the DFS DJ Nation pod that we're going to be doing every single week, covering the slates. Yes, love it. I love that jersey. I'm jealous because I am a huge Miles Sanders fan. So, but yes, you can get that sweet Miles Sanders jersey. That's all it takes. That's all it literally takes. Okay.
An email.
Join.
That's it.
FantasyAuthority1@gmail.com. That's all you got to do. We'll see you in the challenge. Reach out to us. Say, hey, all you got to say is, I went in. Boom. I got your, or Miles Sanders, or one, or I don't care what you say, tell Kevin to go fuck himself. Like whatever you want to do. I don't care, and I will get you in, and, we'll have some fun with it.
Yeah. And then if you have any questions on, who to start or anything, just drop the comments. And more importantly, let us know if there's anything different, what your playoff setup is. And we'll make sure that we answer those questions for you guys. As always, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and we'll talk to you all soon.